And boom, we're on. I know, I'm late. Well, it seems to me I'm about 7 minutes late. It might be 8 minutes, but sometimes you got to roll with the punches. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do, okay? And the important thing, how many would agree with this? The important thing is that we're here. And also, if you could, please tell me in the comments if this broadcast is clear. Tell me if you can hear me loud and clear. If you, wherever you're watching me from, if you're within the sound of my voice, I would be very grateful if you could just indicate at the bottom of the screen there in the comments section, if I am loud and clear. I need to check it here on my monitor so that we're on the same spreadsheet, so that we're on the same page, as it were. I'll get it right here in a moment. Are we on? So that we're on the same spreadsheet. There you go. I think we're good. I'm not seeing your comments though, and I need to see that. It's a beautiful, what is today? Is today Wednesday? Sometimes I have to check my phone just to make sure that I don't get it wrong. Because if I do get it wrong, somebody on Facebook is going to very proudly say, well, that's not the date today. Mayo, hello. Your top fan, what are you saying? I need to, because I can't see it on the monitor there. I'd have to see it on here. If you could tell me exactly what you're trying to tell me, I'd be grateful. Okay. I can hear you. Thank you. We are good. Good. Great. Well, let's get into it, guys. A couple of things I want to talk to you about. I know many of you are just now making your way back to the office from your lunch, and I'm hoping that you had a fantastic lunch. I will tell you, though, I haven't had lunch yet, but I will in about 45 minutes. And guess what I'm going to eat? Fish. Do you know that I could eat fish every single day of the week, twice on Sunday? Tell me I've got a dietary deficiency problem. Tell me. Tell me in the comments, well, you need to diversify a bit. I don't know what it is about fish. I could eat it every single day, Anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. Guys, before I get into it, oh, by the way, did you hear Donald Trump's speech at the UN? OMG. Donald Trump wasn't pulling any punches, boy. He wasn't skirting around the issue. He wasn't mincing any words. He brought it to them. He just told them straight up, your countries are going to hell in a handbasket. You've got this, you're so nice. You're allowing everybody into your country. You're allowing people that don't share your values into your country, and your countries are being destroyed. That's what he said. Yeah. I don't agree with everything Donald Trump says, but I do agree with him there. I think that borders should not be porous. I think that immigration should do more. I feel that immigration is not doing enough. I feel that there needs to be more stringent laws that sort of prohibit an onslaught of undocumented immigrants. I have to tell you this story. Many of you know that I spent 6 days at Mwembeshi prison. I went through it was a horrible experience, but I learned a lot from it. Many of you know the case. Last year, a bus driver parked in front of my building, my gate, and I've been having problems for years with bus drivers in this area. They always did this. They would always just leave their buses in front of my gate, and I couldn't leave. Sometimes I'd have to wait 30, 45, 50 minutes just for them to move the bus for me to leave. And so finally, this one evening, I said to the bus driver, I said, you know what, I'm going to deflate your tires. So I asked one of my guards to deflate the tires. That is to say, release the air from the tires. Well, these two jokers who were on this bus, a bus driver and a bus conductor, came up with this harebrained idea that, you know what, since mwewa has deflated these tires, why don't we just puncture them? They're bald anyway. Bald meaning Yadipua, my tires yadipua. In my language, we say yadipua. In English, it's bald. Bald, like bald. Not bod. Not boiled, not bod, but bald. Okay? Bald. So the tires were bald, and these two jokers surmised, they came up with this foolish idea to puncture the tires and then blame me so that I can buy them the tires. So the owner of the bus came to see me the following day, and he brought me a quotation. He said, "Mr. Mwewa, you punctured my tires." I said, "No, I deflated them." He said, "No, you punctured them." And he gives me a bill of 6,000 kwacha. Immediately, I knew in that moment, I knew this is a heist. This is a shakedown. They want me to buy them brand new tires. So the guy says to me, "Mr. Moore, if you don't pay me 6,000 bucks, I'm going to take you to court." I said, "Take me to court." That's fine. He takes me to court. I didn't hire a lawyer. Reason, a lawyer would minimum charge me 15,000 bucks for that case. I knew where the case was. I knew exactly what I did not do. And I said to myself, I'm not going to pay 15,000 kwacha for a lawyer. I will go to court all by myself and I will argue the case as it is. I go to court. The two guys who were in command of that bus, the bus driver and the bus conductor, when they gave their testimony was conflicting. I mean, they were giving conflicting testimony. You know, one guy said, no, it was on the left. Another one said it was on the right. It was just a bunch. It was a mess. So in my untrained, this is the reason, can I tell you the number one thing I learned from this whole ordeal? Hire a lawyer from the beginning. It's either that or you negotiate with the complainant. What I should have done, looking back in retrospect, I should have simply negotiated with the complainant. But you see, at the time, my frame of thought, my line of logic was, if I give in to this guy's demands, I'm basically buying him brand new tires, and they're just trying to shake me down. So that was my line of logic at the time. But looking back, in retrospect, what I should have done was just negotiated with the guy. And also there was an element of pride on my part, you know, which sometimes, you know, the Word of God says, pride cometh before fall. Well, I didn't see the fall coming, but it came. And so, you know, I went through the case. When it came time for me to testify, and the judge turned to me, I'll never forget that day, the judge turning to me and saying, "Mr. Mwewa, you've been accused of malicious damage. Is there anything you'd like to say in your defense?" I said, "No, I'm going to remain silent." Thinking that my silence would be justified because of the bus driver and the conductor, because of their conflicting testimony. In my mind, I was thinking, oh, I'm not going to ruin it by saying anything. These two jokers have already given conflicting testimonies. That's what I thought. Well, guess what? When the day of judgment came, the judge, ooh, he wasn't messing around, boy. He turned to me and said, "Mr. Mwewa, people like you are supposed to be the pillars of the community. You cannot be seen to be damaging people's property in that manner. So, what I'm going to do, Mr. Mwewa, I'm going to sentence you." The moment he said that, my mind, I was thinking, oh, he's going to find me guilty. He's going to make me pay for these tires. Not one moment did I ever think that I'd go to jail. I wasn't even worried about that. The only thing that was in my mind was, oh, this judge is going to send me he's going to make me pay for these tires. Oh no, honey. It was worse than that. The judge says, "Mr. Mwewa, as a cautionary tale, I have to make an example out of people like you. So I'm going to sentence you to 6 months in jail." I looked at that judge and I said, in my mind, I was thinking, I can't go to jail for 6 months. I got a meeting at 2 o'clock. What are you talking about, 6 months? 6 months? In a moment, I felt like I was living in an alternative universe. It is the weirdest feeling in the world. You're there, but you're not there. And you want to literally jump out of your body and say, look, I don't want to be a part of this. But there's nothing you can do. You're stuck in there. And the judge says 6 months starting today. And he took the gavel. You know the gavel? The little wooden hammer. It's called a gavel. Okay? He took the gavel, and when he struck his desk with the gavel, my goodness, it felt like 100 houses were crashing down at the same time. For the first time, that gavel it sounded so loud, it almost deafened me. It almost blew out my ears. Boom! I said, this is it. My life is over. And the first person I thought of course, is my wife. I said, she's going to be furious as hell. First of all, let's start there. Okay? And she's the very first person I text. I said, honey, I've been sent to 6 months. Now, in that moment, because I'd never been to prison before, you know, this was my first time in prison, and I didn't know what was going on. In my mind, I was thinking, this is it. I'm going to be sent away for 6 months. My family will never see me ever again. By the time I come out, my wife is probably just going to stand by the door and say, where the hell have you been? I just didn't know what was going to happen. You know, I was a fish out of water. It was terrible. So, you know, they lead you. The police officer walks up to me in the dark, because once the judge sentences you, that's it. You don't leave. You are no longer a free man, a free person. So the police officer, the marshal, not the police officer, the marshal was kind enough. He walked up to me and said, Mr. Mwewa, there are some journalists outside the court. They want to photograph you. And in fact, one of them said, I hope you are going to put Mwewa in handcuffs so that we picture him to Mukope Mwewa, Uma handcuffs, as you lead him to the cell. So the officer walked up to me and says, no, Mr. Mwewa, these journalists, they want me to parade you. But I'm not going to do that. We are just going to go down the tunnel. You know, let's just go down the tunnel. I didn't even know there was a tunnel. Did you know that right there in the courtroom, in the dark, there's a little door you walk through, and then you walk down the steps into the ground, and it's a tunnel that leads all the way to the cell block section of the property. The tunnel was so long, it was so dark, it was so dingy. I couldn't believe I was there. And I thought, dear God, what is this? So we're walking halfway through. All of a sudden I had an epiphany of realization that I was in this position. I turned to the officer who was walking behind me. I said to him, officer, where are we going? He looked at me and said, Mr. Mwewa, you're going to prison. Where do you think you're going? It's funny now, but oh, honey, at the time it was horrible. Anyway, I spent 6 days there. My lawyer came to see me, J&M Associates, Madaika. I can never say thank you enough. I love J&M Associates. You changed my life. And my lawyer came to see me, and he assured me. And I tell you, there is nothing sweeter. There's nothing more pleasant than you being stuck between a rock and a hard place, and your lawyer looks straight into your eye. He puts his hand on your shoulder and says, it's going to be fine. We're going to get through this. 6 days later, I was out of prison. I appealed the case. A few months down the road, when I went to the high court to hear whether or not my appeal had gone through, had been successful, I stood in front of, it was Judge Mabolobolo presiding in the high court. Now, I got to tell you something about appeals. Appeals are fine when you're granted an appeal. Okay, when you are allowed to appeal your sentence, they release you. That initial euphoria, it's fine. But oh, honey, reality hits you when you now have to, when D-Day comes and you have to go to the high court and hear whether or not the high court has either upheld your sentence or overturned it. Woo! Boy, I tell you, ain't nothing in the world like that, boy. I sat there, and you know how judges do it. You know, they start reading that thing off. There's a portion of the judgment where they sound like they're going to let you off. And then there's another portion when they're reading, they sound like they're going to kill you. There's a part that just sounds, this is it. You're dead, you're done. They're going to send you to the guillotine. Your family ain't never going to see you again. That's how it feels. But finally, when the judge got to the bottom line, he said, I therefore overturn your sentence and I fine you 6,000 kwacha. Mr. Mwewa, boom, you're free to go. I walked out of the high court. I said, is the sun shining brighter than usually? Than usual? Huh? Is the air sweeter than it usually is? Huh? It's beautiful. There's no feeling in the world like that. Never take your freedom for granted. Well, I said all of that to say this. What was the reason? Why am I bringing that up? Why did I bring that up? I brought this up for a reason. And, you know, I forget now why I brought it up, but I thought I'd share that with you guys. And when I came back to Simoson, because, you know, all the bus drivers in this area, when they heard, many of them, not all of them, but many of them, the vast majority of them, when they heard that I was given 6 months in prison, oh my goodness, the celebration that broke out in City Market, unbelievable. Now, what did you want to chikaka? Ulenjeba, alande kweba 6 months. So kuno, the twakula chimona for 6 months. So twakula chitafia for 3-4. We can just drive anywhere we want here. The 3-4 pasimo son paper to a parking. Now cheer for 6 months. When I came out after 6 days, a couple of the bus drivers walked up to me and said, "What the hell are you doing here? We thought you were in prison for 6 months." Huh? What do you? I said, look, I explained all of that. And I must tell you that ever since that time, the bus drivers don't do that anymore. They never park in front of my building, my gate. They never do it. Conversely, I never touch their cars, ever. What's the lesson there? The lesson is learn the lesson and move on. Okay, thought I'd share that with you. I have to mention Malawi. You know what I find interesting about some Zambians online? Understand this, guys, and I want you to hear me when I tell you this. Zambia, as Zambian citizens, we are the captains of our fate. We elect our leaders based upon our needs, wants, and our positions. Members of this community called the Zambian community. We do not do anything just because someone else is doing it. Okay, in 2021, who are we copying in 2021? Because some of you have this idea, no, we are going to use Malawi formula. No, you're going to use democracy formula. Why? Because you and I, you eligible voters, you that are within the sound of my voice, when the time comes to cast our votes, when the time comes to select our leaders, leaders that are going to lead us into 2026 and beyond, that's our call. We get to do that. We're doing that. Why? Because we are the captains of our destiny. In 2021, we chose to go a different direction. Were we copying someone? Was there a country that we looked at and said, no, Croatia did it, so let's use the Croatia formula. Oh, Bogota, Colombia did it. Let's use Bogota, Colombia formula. Oh, let's use Paris, France. Paris, France, there's no such thing. There's only democracy formula. So in this case, for all intent and purposes, Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, former president of the Republic of Malawi, has recently conceded defeat, which is what he's supposed to do. Why? Because it's a democracy there. Even us, our time to select our leaders in 2026 and beyond is coming. And when it comes, my brothers and sisters, you and I get to select. You and I get to choose. Why? Because we are citizens of this territory. This country, Zambia, is not a totalitarian state. No, it is governed by the tenets of democracy. We must uphold that by any means necessary. So when the dust settles and when the dew dries in 2026, we're going to vote. We're going to choose. We're going to select. And then it's going to be 2026 and beyond. I've got a meeting. I got to go. God bless. Love you guys.